Welcome to our first session. It is called Preparing Students for High-Need Occupations. We have Joyce Stefan from Ohio State University and Eric Feldman from Florida International University. They're going to talk to us today about a couple of programs that they've run, very successful programs, in fact, award-winning, in fact, programs for students. Joyce Stefan is going to talk about the Ohio Export Internship program, and Eric Feldman is going to talk about the Internship Consultation program at the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies at Florida International University. Each presenter is going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to present their slides, and after that we'll have time for questions and answers. You can ask your questions and answer in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and then we will review them at the end, and I'll ask them to our two presenters so that they can provide any answers that might be of interest to you. So first up, we have Joyce Stefan from the Fisher College of Business. She's the director of our Center for International Business Education and Research. Part of what we're doing with this technical assistance webinar is to celebrate our programs, to talk about what we've been doing in the last 3 or 4 years while these programs have been ongoing. And also we will be providing technical assistance for the next round of competitions. This one is a celebratory panel, and we'll start with Joyce Stefan. Joyce?
Thanks, Tim. Good morning, everyone, and greetings from The Ohio State University. I'd like to share with you this morning a best practice that the OSU Cyber initiated back in 2012 that demonstrates the positive impact of partnerships between the state of Ohio, its universities, and private industry. The Ohio State University and the state of Ohio, Ohio Development Agency, formed a strategic partnership with the goal to train a global workforce, grow export sales, and create jobs within small to medium-sized Ohio companies. The overall mission was to help close the skills gap between Ohio companies that needed employees who knew how to export and students from universities across the state of Ohio who have developed those critical global business skills. However, before I speak specifically about the Ohio Export Internship Program, I'd like to explain in a little more detail how the idea came to fruition. During our grant writing process, our theme or focus of the grant would relate to various activities and initiatives that would impact the global workforce development. I'm sure you would all agree that closing a national skills gap as it related to then President Obama's National Export Initiative would be an impactful initiative not only to Ohio's economy, but also provide a valuable opportunity for students across the state to develop an important global competency for companies who were challenged with finding the right talent to expand their export capabilities. We knew that many small and medium-sized Ohio companies lacked the resources, the bandwidth, and many times an understanding of the export function. They seemed to be reactive to an export opportunity, and we wanted to help them be more proactive in their global strategies. So we worked with the state of Ohio, DSA, to create a unique partnership between these Ohio universities and these small to medium-sized Ohio companies to apply classroom learning to current business challenges faced by our companies in today's global economy. A competitive application and selection process at The Ohio State University, Youngstown State University, and now Cleveland State University yields a talented group of students every year who learn in a spring semester classroom environment and then apply that learning in a 12-week paid summer internship experience where they have the chance to work with real people at real companies exporting real products. Based on results as self-reported by the companies, the Ohio Export Internship Program has succeeded in training students from many universities across the state in the fundamentals of exporting and placing them with these companies to apply that knowledge. Our interns have helped companies develop new markets, identify new distributors, and recruit new customers. We carefully match those students who have language capabilities or cultural knowledge of specific countries to those companies across the state who have that need. And these companies are creating new jobs to sustain those global strategies. And that's really what this program was designed to do, create jobs and impact Ohio's economy. We're proud to say that the projects our interns have worked on have impacted Ohio's expected export sales by over $25.5 million. That's pretty significant, and we're very proud of the fact that the Ohio Export Internship was recognized in 2016 by the U.S. Department of Commerce by receiving the President's E Award for Export Excellence. So thanks for your interest in learning more about the Ohio State Cyber Initiative, and I'm happy to answer any questions when the time comes. Thank you.
Joyce, I wonder if I can ask real quickly, since we have a little bit of time, when you talk about the interns developing new markets, what are you referring to? Or is it new markets that are developed? You said there are 47 of them. What does that mean?
Correct. So the companies self-report every year the impact of what the student interns have accomplished. During the class, the students learn a very intricate market research matrix that helps companies understand where they should be exporting. Sometimes companies aren't quite sure if they should be expanding their markets to Mexico or expanding their markets to Nicaragua or wherever that might be. So by developing this market matrix, these interns are able to go in, use various resources that they've learned, identify what is the best market for that particular company's product. They're doing competitor analysis, they're doing a variety of things that help that company decide from an objective way, a factual way, where they should be expanding their markets. And it's proven to be successful because the companies are indeed expanding their strategies to include more companies than what they might have done before the intern arrived.
So is the internship credit bearing?
Actually, it is. It's a 3-credit-hour class during the spring semester, and students from not only Ohio State who enroll in the class that I teach here, I also have students from 10 other universities who come to Ohio State, take the class here on our campus, and are enrolled at their home institution in a 3-credit-hour class.
Thank you, Joyce. Next up, we have Eric Feldman from Florida International University. He's going to talk about the Internship Consultation Program that is run out of the Latin American and Caribbean Studies Center at Florida International University. Eric?
Hi, good morning. So I'm Eric Feldman. I'm the internship coordinator with the Kimberly Green Latin American and Caribbean Center here at Florida International University in Miami. I'm going to say next slide, even though I'm not sure if I see them for procedure's sake, so next slide. The purpose of our career-centered internship program is to prepare our students for the workforce while also increasing awareness of the Latin American and Caribbean region in general. Our target population is students in our School of International and Human Development so that future K-12 and higher educators of the United States will be able to impart informed perspectives about the Latin American and Caribbean region, which I'll refer to as the LAC region for brevity's sake throughout the presentation. Towards this end, we place a primary focus on a particular master's degree called FIU's Masters in International and Intercultural Education. We formed a great partnership with the program leaders of this program and communicate with these students directly via email about specific internship opportunities, as well as our consultation services in general. And we also host information sessions for students in all of our education-related majors. This focus on education students aside, however, the LAC internship program is for any and all FIU students who wish to have an internship that enhances their awareness of the LAC region while also preparing them for overall economic opportunity after graduation. There are 2 programs that we leverage at the undergraduate level to help students encourage the participation in internships and help them find internships. And these are the Global Learning Medallion and Peace Corps Prep students. Though separate from the internship consultation program, they represent a combined enrollment of about 1,200 students who have signed up for one or both of those programs out of our Office of Global Learning Initiatives. And all of those students have expressed an enhanced interest in global awareness, perspective, and engagement, making them a great population to help find internships. Internship opportunities are also sent directly to all the students signed up for those programs, and completing internship experiences counts towards earning multiple designations and awards that are conferred out of those programs. So I heard one of the questions from the last presentation was whether or not they're credit bearing. And so this is an interesting take where, in addition to students potentially getting academic credit for their internships depending on what academic program they're in, we have an infrastructure for having these internship experiences count as credit towards co-curricular awards and designations that the university confers. And I'll go to the next slide, please. Our internship consultation services are similar in nature to what you might expect to find at a career services office at your own universities, with the main distinguishing factor being the focus on the LAC region as opposed to separating the types of internships that we advertise or the students that we support by their major or the industry of the internship. We curate and distribute all internships pertaining to the LAC region, whether those internships might be related to sales, marketing, consulting, nonprofit that are working on social issues, or academic publications and think tanks, etc. In addition to highlighting specific opportunities, we work with students in 1 or more hour consultation sessions to develop customized internship search strategies so students can find additional internships beyond the ones we even know about. And we provide support for writing and editing resumes and cover letters and other application materials as necessary. And we are fully accessible to provide the support to students over the phone, in person, by email, as well as through comprehensive resources that are available on our website that students can review at their own leisure. And next slide, please. Our consultation process is co-created by the students and myself, the internship coordinator, and we clearly outline who is responsible for what each step of the way. So in order for our 1 hour long consultation session to be as productive as possible, each student is asked to consider in advance what type of internship they're looking for, including what locations are open to them, what field they want to work in, the type of employer, whether that be government, an educational institution, a corporation, a nonprofit, what language skills might be required by that internship. Our students in Miami have a variety of language skills, but they might want an internship that helps them develop something they're not proficient in. They might not be looking for that. They might already be fluent in something and want to practice that. And whether they require having a paid internship considering their personal circumstances. The form that students fill out on our website to request a consultation actually asks them to fill out answers to each of these types of things, because perhaps unsurprisingly, students will show up to me or email me and say that they want an internship, and I have no idea, well, are you willing to travel to Washington, D.C. for a semester here for an internship? And sometimes they haven't even thought about that. So getting these questions prompted right away is very helpful. Then, as the internship coordinator, I provide internship suggestions and search strategies that are tailored to their answers, and when necessary, contact employers to determine the availability of internships. So this kind of goes both ways. Sometimes I'll know of an internship or have already found one and send it to a whole list of students. Other times, based on what a student tells me they're interested in, I might have thought of something or find an opportunity that we've never sent before and contact that organization to see if they do take interns or would be willing to take interns. Together, the students and I prepare resumes and personal statements, practice for interviews, and apply internship experiences for credit towards FIU programs, depending on which programs there are. Since I'm dealing with students from a variety of majors and programs, if and how they count for credit is quite variable. Next slide, please. Our straightforward and effective internship consultation program helps about 40 students per year from across all majors and academic levels secure internship experiences in a variety of fields and locations. This slide aims to highlight the diversity of both the type of student that we serve as well as the types of opportunities that we have helped those students secure, while demonstrating how each student is more uniquely prepared for success in important and in-demand careers. So multiple students that we've helped place have gotten internships in the direct vicinity of campus, within miles of our campus here in Miami, and that provide them direct access to the Latin American and Caribbean region. So on the business front, we're the primary provider of marketing and sales interns to a local company that sells kitchen appliances to Latin American clients. And we also have recently developed great relationships with two large media companies that you're probably familiar with, NBC Universal and BBC Worldwide. They both have offices here in Miami that are specifically focused on their Latin American operations. And we've just in this past semester have had students placed at both of those. So that's an example of the corporate sector and local placements. On the social issues front, there are nonprofits like Global Ties Miami and organizations that have hosted a local human trafficking conference, and students have had local internships in that nonprofit space. We also have students placed internationally, and our recurring international internship placement is with an organization called Blue Energy, located in Bluefield, Nicaragua. And we've had 9 total FIU students who have spent a summer in Bluefields working on sustainable development and environmental, protection programs and sustainable energy programs. And then I also have on here example of 2 students, Lily, who is an undergraduate, and Ed, who is a graduate student and an adult student towards a second career. Both of them have had virtual internships, and Ed actually has had 2 different virtual internships. Lily's internship, which was fully virtual, which involved viral mapping Zika, the spread of Zika for the Alliance for Global Justice, is directly applicable to her workforce preparation as an aspiring doctor. And Ed's 2 virtual internships with the Latin American News Digest publication and the U.S. Department of State certainly complement his Latin American and Caribbean Studies master's degree and will make him more marketable for his desired types of employment. Both of these students are actually enrolled in the programs I mentioned earlier, the Global Learning Medallion and Peace Corps Prep programs. So they will not only help them earn awards out of those programs, but both of those programs require a substantive, reflective e-portfolio, which helps them process what they've learned, but is also publicly available online so that they can have their website as a tool to use during the job search process. So that is not a built-in part of every student who gets an internship with us, but since we do encourage students to participate in those programs, there is that added benefit of their internship then being reflected on and available on their websites. And I will go to the next and final slide, please. So, like the previous presentation, I look forward to spending more time on questions as I gave a basic overview and where I can provide detail about our programs. I do have on the screen my contact information, and just in case you have any trouble seeing it, my email is really easy. I'm Eric F. My email address is ericf@fiu.edu, and I would love for you to see our website for yourself. So I'll just say it really quickly in case it's small or there's any issues. lac.fiu.edu/academics/internships. You can see highlighted opportunities, the consultation request form, our resume, advice, and all the information we have on there. And our partner office, which is the Office of Global Learning, is at goglobal.fiu.edu, where you can read more about the Medallion and Peace Corps Prep programs. Thank you so much for your time.
If you could maybe tell us a little bit more about the Global Learning Medallion. You indicated that it's used as part of your outreach efforts, but is there more to it than that? I mean, how does it apply to this particular program?
Absolutely. So it's the Medallion is a program that's open to all undergraduate students who are interested in international and intercultural learning. And so once they apply for this program, they can earn a actual physical medallion shaped like a globe to wear to graduation. And in order to do that, there's a specific combination of courses, activities and events on campus, leadership programs like alternative break service trips or having leadership position in a club, and then doing either internships, research projects, study abroad, or language courses, as well as doing that reflective e-portfolio. So while this is separate from our internship consultation program, since internships are one opportunity to fulfill the medallion requirements, and we provide consultation for internships, and all of this is within the realm of global learning, we advertise the internships that we are highlighting to students in that program, and encourage students who might not be in that program, who we provide a consultation to perhaps join that program, because then not only will they have gotten an internship through us, that internship can count towards a significant part of earning this university award, and then that award program, which I'm also very involved with, provides advertisements to students. So it's not just go do these activities like a lecture. They get sent those opportunities. So a student might get one of our internships with NBC Universal. If I have them suggest that they sign up for the medallion, then they'll start receiving emails about other events that they might not have known about, but might extend the real world learning that they got at their internship.
So is it fair to say that there's sort of a synergy between the two programs?
Absolutely, positively, yes.
Okay. Thank you for that, Eric. Appreciate it. Now we are going to take some questions. We have quite a few of them here. I will read out the question and direct it to the appropriate panelist. So Joyce, Gloria Caudill from the University of Michigan wonders, who pays for the internship? Is it the company?
Yes, the company pays the student wages at $15 an hour, and the Development Services Agency then has a grant that we reimburse the companies 50% of those students' wages. So the company has a little bit of skin in the game, and it makes it an attractive option for the companies to sort of test the water if they have not implemented any sort of export functions within their company. So yes, the companies do pay, and we reimburse the companies up to 50% of the wages to a maximum of $3,600 for the 12-week internship.
And that's the way it is across the board? It's $15 an hour for every internship? That's just part of this program?
That's correct. We standardized the wages. It made it a little more fair. We are matching the students. The companies don't get to pick their student intern, and the students don't get to pick their companies. So it's a sort of an art and a science in the matching process, and it seems to have worked very well. And the companies typically have been very happy with the students. Once in a while, we'll have a student who maybe doesn't have quite the language capability that they had hoped for, but for the most part, the matching process has worked very well.
When you're matching, you look into, say, what their interests are, what their training is, how that might contribute to the internship, and might not only contribute to the company, but also contribute to the student's learning outcome?
That's correct. So when a company decides that they're going to participate, our DSA partners will meet with them, interview the company. The companies are selected just as competitively as the students are. And so the companies will develop a scoping document, identify the specifics about what it is that they want to do, in tandem with usually someone from our SBDC, Small Business Development Center, or Export Assistance Network Director, who is working with the companies and knows the needs of the companies very well. And so once a scoping document has been designed, then we look at that. We look at the skill sets that they need. So if they need website translation, or if they need someone who has strong market research skills, we'll match the student with those skill sets. And we also match the student preferences because sometimes students want to work in a specific industry. Sometimes they want to work in an export service environment. Sometimes they want to work in a logistical arena, or maybe they are interested in the financial aspect or compliance aspect of one of the scopes. So we match that very carefully. We do ask the students to relocate if they're willing to. So geographic preference is important. So a student who might be here enrolled at Ohio State but lives in Cleveland might be interested in working in Northeast Ohio so that they can live at home. Our students have been pretty creative in how they identify summer housing. We've had them sublease, we've had them cost share. So yes, sometimes the students will have to relocate for the summer as well.
Thank you, Joyce. Keith Snodgrass asks Joyce if you can tell us which programs were taught in the export program. Which languages? Which language? Did I say programs? Which languages were taught in the export program?
Well, we don't teach languages in the program, but I have a wide variety of students who already have language proficiency. So I do admit international students in the program. So for example, I had a student who was from China who obviously spoke Mandarin very well, but she also was proficient in Spanish. And so we placed her with an Ohio company that was very interested in expanding their exports to China. So she helped them do that, but she also helped them expand their market into Peru. So the company actually ended up hiring her, and she's done a very nice job because she has those two language capabilities, able to expand the markets in that specific region, identified by the extensive market research by the student as well.
Your internships, this is from Alan Paul. Your internships are obviously, some of them are obviously at least domestic, but are any of them abroad? Do any of the interns go overseas?
Well, actually, yes, once in a while. We do have students who will travel to international trade shows, but that's usually pretty rare. We did have a student who went to India with his supervisor. We had a student who went down to Peru. We had a student who went to Nicaragua. It is possible, but it's usually more rare.
I mean, the goal is to help Ohio companies in particular with expanding exports. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. So we focus on the small to medium-sized Ohio company that, as I had mentioned, either doesn't have the bandwidth, doesn't have the resources, or doesn't have the functional knowledge. So think about that overworked domestic sales manager who receives an email from someone in Nicaragua who wants to order 1,000 of their widgets. So the sales manager says, yeah, I think we can do that. Thinking to himself, yeah, I'm gonna meet my monthly sales quota. Tells the company, yep, we can do that, and then sits back and says, oh, okay, how am I going to do that? This is where our intern comes into play, because that's a reactive kind of export strategy. They're reacting to the phone call, the email that they might get. Our interns are able to help them be much more proactive about that and identify those markets and that strategy that they would have in terms of identifying a distributor, identifying mode of entry, identifying how you're going to get your product there, identifying how you're going to get paid. And so those are important functions that sometimes our interns are actually teaching to their supervisors. And they will many times create a manual, a documentation manual about how they did things. Sometimes they're creating compliance manuals. So teaching a little bit or training some of their colleagues that they work with in their companies during the summer.
Thank you, Joyce. Also, let's see, Mel Jameson at UNLV is wondering how the companies are identified or recruited. What's the process for that?
So the state of Ohio is responsible for sourcing the companies. So we do a lot of advertising, or they do, through their SBDCs or export assistance centers, or an economic development entity. We have 88 counties. Each of them have an economic development entity, and we work very closely with them. We do association meetings. We're sending out email blasts. So the longer that we've been doing this, the more awareness that companies have about it, and they talk to each other at a variety of meetings, organizations, whatever that might be. So they apply online through the Ohio Development Services Agency, just like our students do. So the universities, YSU, Youngstown State University, Cleveland State University, and Ohio State, we are responsible for recruiting and selecting the students. DSA, with their SBDC partners, are responsible for sourcing the companies, interviewing the companies, and then we all work together during the course and during the internship itself. We have weekly conference calls where we are looking at status reports that the students send in every week, identifying where we might have an issue, and then we resolve that.
Let's bring Eric into this discussion. Eric, basically the same question. How do you identify outside partners for your program?
Such a variety of ways. Some of them are very personal connections, such as FIU alumni. We actively survey alumni from our programs to see where they're working and if they have internships available. And sometimes we hear from our alumni to see if they have internships available. So a good example of that is the international nonprofit Church World Service that does refugee resettlement. And we had many alumni of our Latin American Caribbean Center work there, so we found out from them about internships and have placed students there, for example, as that's the same case as our International Rescue Committee. We're very fortunate in Miami to have offices of these sorts of international nonprofits near campus. So that way, the NBC Universal internship also was from an FIU alumni who is working in a managerial position at NBC Universal, and that's fortunately a well-paying internship. Other internships have been simple online research, for example. So with the Alliance for Global Justice, which I mentioned, Lily was doing viral mapping of Zika for that organization, was through searching the internet for organizations that are focused on issues of Latin America and the Caribbean. So we seek a variety of kind of personal contacts and just other means to find places, and then we try to maintain as close of a relationship as possible with those internship providers, so that I hear directly from them when they have placements, if they have any particular new needs or new type of position they haven't done before, and so I think the relationship management aspect is something I would peg as being very, very vital. That you just send quick emails of, hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Is everything fine? And that really builds a relationship where I'm hearing about any opportunities they might have, perhaps exclusively or before other people.
Thank you. Clark Bonilla at Georgetown has asked a number of questions of you, Eric. He's curious about foreign language, how foreign languages play into the internships. If there's a proficiency requirement, is it only Spanish, or are Portuguese and Creole included? Those kinds of things. If maybe you could answer some of those questions.
Absolutely, that's a great question, because our program doesn't have its own requirements. The requirements are then those of the organization or company providing the internship, and language often does play a role. I would say a majority of the internships that we offer to our students do require a high degree of Spanish proficiency, which luckily many of our students in Miami do have. So certainly those NBC and BBC Latin America marketing offices require that, for example. I do try to actively search for internships that do utilize other languages like Portuguese and Creole, so that our students that might have that proficiency or be working on developing that proficiency through FIU courses can practice it in a professional setting. And the best example I have of that is an organization called Prospectiva, which is a public policy consulting firm based in Brazil that has a Miami office. And so that has been our go-to opportunity for our students who are practicing Portuguese proficiency to use that in a professional setting.
Sarah Maxim at Cal Berkeley is asking a question that's probably going to be of great interest to the people who are tuning into this session. This is for Eric. She's wondering if your internship program is directly funded by the NRC Title VI grant, and if it is, what are the program target goals when you're doing your reporting to Ed?
I'm careful to answer that sort of question too specifically, because I don't directly prepare the report that gets submitted in. Our program is structured so that I'm the student-facing coordinator who finds the internships and works with the students to apply for them. So on all of the reporting cycles that are necessary for this program, I get at what I prepare is a comprehensive list of the total number of consultations that I hosted and what majors those students were from, the total number of applications that that I am aware of students having submitted as a result of our consultations, and what organizations those were to, as well as the number of placements that I've confirmed where I've actually verified that the student was placed at that organization, and that also does have the company or organization that the students were placed in. So that does give a nice picture of kind of outcomes in terms of there's a large number of consultations, some percentage of those students apply, and some percentage of those students are accepted. And so I provide those numbers to others in our Latin American Caribbean Center who prepare the official reporting. But I am unfortunately, considering that this workshop is focused on some of these aspects, don't personally prepare the report that goes back externally to really know how they frame that in terms of the target funding goals.
That was worth a shot, right? Amanda Wolf is wondering more, Eric, about the Global Learning Medallion. She's wondering if that's specific to LAC or if it's a program that's administered at the university level with campus-wide support.
Yes, that is a great question, and the answer is the latter. So FIU has a very unique and amazing program, if I say so myself, called Global Learning for Global Citizenship, and that is an effort that has been ongoing for almost 7 years now to make sure that every single student, regardless of their major, does get exposure to global awareness, perspective, engagement, both in and out of the classroom. So what happens here at FIU is we have a list of currently about 195 courses in all undergraduate majors that have been specifically designed to give international intercultural perspective, including majors like biology and criminal justice, not just the international relation types of majors. And every single one of our undergraduate students, we have over 40,000 undergraduate students, all of them take at least 2 of those courses. And then the Global Learning Medallion is the centerpiece of the co-curricular component of that, where in order to expand that beyond the classroom, students can go to the lectures and events. They can use our support to apply for internships and to develop research projects and join clubs and things like that. So the Medallion is part of that initiative, which is available to all majors and administered, yes, at the university level through the office called the Office of Global Learning Initiatives.
Also, I actually want to ask this question of both of you, but I'll start with Eric. Do you have a handle on what university departments participate in this? Is it? I mean, obviously this is administered out of LAC, but are there other departmental partners on campus?
I personally try to go as direct to students as possible. I think the partnerships are incredibly important in any initiative at a university, but there are also a lot of staff and a lot of offices, and especially at an institution as large as FIU with a total student population of nearly 55,000. I have just personally found it to be as beneficial to contact students directly by doing what I've described earlier in terms of getting access to email the 1,200 Medallion students, to email directly all of the students in the International Intercultural Education Master's Program directly. And so certainly there are some partnerships in terms of being able to access those students, but that partnership, I guess, then is mostly about being able to access the students directly and work with them directly.
Ask the question a slightly different way then. Are there the students that take part in the internship program, are they from different departments? I mean, do you get engineering students? Do you get business students? Do you get political science students? Is that the case?
Yes, absolutely. So they're from a variety of departments, and when I prepare that report, for reporting back, I do separate it out by major, and there's representation from across majors. That's probably a result of the Medallion and other places that we advertise being populated themselves by students from a variety of majors. But yes, absolutely, there are business majors doing those marketing internships, and there have definitely been at least one engineering student who has done the Blue Energy program in Nicaragua. So yes, is the answer.
And Joyce, same question. I'm wondering if, and I'm not the only one, this came up on my screen, by the way, what other departments are represented? I mean, obviously, it's probably international business students, because it's a pretty specific program that you have. But are there other university departments that you recruit students from for this?
Well, yes, actually. So our program is specifically identified for business students, not just international business students. So we have a wide range of specializations. We also have some business minors. We've had an international relations student who was a business minor who participated and did a great job. We also have MBA students. So this past year, I had 3 MBA students from Fisher, plus a few MBA students from a couple of other universities, and they interact in the classroom the same way with all the undergrad students. Most of the cohort is comprised of undergraduate students. So at Youngstown State, I think they are all business students, but the business students are a wide variety of specializations. Again, having students who have a finance major and the project scope is really related about setting up, a payment process or currency exchange or credit insurance or whatever that might be. That's the kind of matching focus that we look at. So we don't entertain students who are biology majors or anything like that. They do need to have a fairly strong understanding of business, and so that's what we look for.
And Joyce, how do you assess language proficiency, or do you assess language proficiency before you place a student in an internship? And if so, how do you assess it?
Well, most of the students are So we have a lot of students from China, India, you know, we have a strong Spanish language minor. So if a student is enrolled as a Spanish language minor, then we feel pretty confident that they're going to have a good understanding of that. So as part of my program, I don't do a language proficiency assessment. I'm going to assume that if a student is a Spanish minor or is from China or from Peru or from one of those countries, that they have a pretty good command of their own language.
Thank you, Joyce. It looks as if that's all of the questions we have. I suppose I can give another minute or two for a couple more questions to come in. If there's anything else, now's your chance to enter a question into the chat box, and we have Eric and Joyce here to answer your questions. Why don't we give it another minute or so? Looks like we had a moment of silence instead. So I think that's all of our questions. I would like to thank Joyce Stefan from Ohio State University and our cyber at Ohio State, and Eric Feldman at Florida International University and our NRC there. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for sharing all of this information, and I hope you have a good day.